As an investor, there will be different stages and different phases of your investment journey that you will enter and go through throughout your life. So that's all the way from when you begin to invest your money right through until retirement and past retirement. It's really important that investors understand this, and especially for beginner investors, so that they understand what sort of journey that they can expect and how best to plan for the different stages. If you've watched any of my videos before, or if you're new to this channel and you like what you see, then please subscribe for future content that will hopefully bring you value, and that would really help me out. So basically, when you're an investor, there are 3 main stages that you will enter and you will go through throughout your investing life. So let's break each one down and discuss what each stage means and how that looks for you as an investor. These stages are defined by which life point you're at any given time, and they can be easily broken down by the age of the investor. So the first stage that we have is called the accumulation stage, and this is typically for people that are below the age of 40. Now, it doesn't have to specifically be for only under 40s. If you've got into investing later on in life, then typically you'll probably enter this stage first. So that could happen at age 50, age 60, whatever that may be. But we're just going to look at averages. So on average, people under 40 that invest will be in the accumulation stage. And this is stage 1 of your investment journey. Then we move on to stage 2. And this is called preservation. So this happens above the age of 40, but before retirement. I'm not going to get into what this looks like now, as we'll touch on that later in the video, but just know that accumulation is stage 1, preservation is stage 2, and then in stage 3, we have redistribution, and this happens at retirement and past retirement. What I will quickly say is the things that we're going to go through in today's video are based on averages. So of course, an individual's ability to save, earn money, invest, all of that good stuff will change throughout their life depending on different things that hit them in the face. So, when you buy a house, maybe you go through a bit of unemployment during your life, maybe you start a family, maybe you get a pay rise at work. All these things will affect your ability to invest as an investor. So of course, during these different stages, you will have periods of time where you can really meet these goals and periods of time where you have to reshift a little bit, but that's completely normal. So let's have a look at stage 1, which we've just defined as the accumulation stage. And we said this was when you're below the age of 40. So the idea of this stage is that you really start to accumulate your money. In this stage, you will typically have been employed. You will start building up your money. You will begin to save more money and then start investing that money. During this phase, the primary goal for an investor in the accumulation phase is to save as much money as they can and to begin investing it. And during this phase, you will typically have a risk profile that is relatively high. Now, the reason that someone in the accumulation phase that's typically below the age of 40 can afford to have a risk profile that is much higher than the other phases that we're going to touch on in a bit is because you will tend to have a longer period of time to make any corrections to anything in your investment portfolio that goes a little bit south. So if you invest in something that just doesn't do well or loses you some money, you still have a lot of time before retirement to put that right. Whereas if you're only a year away from your planned retirement age and you invest in something that's very risky and you lose a lot of money, that could be really detrimental and that could set you back a lot of time. You may now not be able to retire for another 5 or 6 years. So that is why they typically say that people that are younger can afford to be more risky in their investments than people that are closer to retirement age. The phase after the accumulation phase is called preservation. The name says it all. This is where you're really looking to preserve the wealth that you've built in that accumulation stage. However, you are still building your wealth in this stage. It doesn't stop in the accumulation stage. You still need to invest and build your portfolio up and get wealthy. Now, there is definitely a difference between getting rich and getting wealthy. If you want a video from me about the differences between being rich and being wealthy, do let me know in the comments below and I'll definitely make that. Once you're in the preservation stage, so this is when you're above the age of 40 but before retirement age, you probably have an established career and you probably have maybe a few different passive incomes. If you don't, that's obviously fine. But the whole point is that you're not experimenting anymore. You're not in and out of jobs so much. This is the stage where you're quite comfortable and you're earning decent money. At this stage, you would begin to invest as much as you can. So perhaps when you're young, you've just bought a house, you're in low paid jobs, you're trying to spend money on different experiences. And this can mean that typically you have less money to invest. You still may be investing 80% of your income, which is fantastic, but that 80% may only be £500 a month. Whereas when you're in the preservation stage, that 80% or even 60% may look more like £1,200 a month. So you're looking to invest as much as you can. And it's whilst you're in this preservation stage that you would really begin to look at the assets you own and the risk profile that you have within your portfolio. So you would start looking to lower your risk a little bit and moving towards a medium risk profile. So you still want to be building wealth and making money. So you still want to be growing your portfolio, but you don't want to be investing in such risky things anymore as you would in the accumulation stage. You may want to start looking at shifting some of your high risk assets into lower or medium risk assets. So for example, in the accumulation stage, you may have had 60% of your portfolio in growth stocks. And that may have seen you really well, but now you might look to move a percentage of that into bonds, which typically are much, much more reliable in the returns that they give you. Okay, so once you've come out of this preservation stage, you will then enter the redistribution stage. And this is really when you enter retirement and once you're in the retirement phase of life. So obviously up until this point, you have built your wealth up. So the graph has very much looked like this. You know, you've entered the accumulation stage, you've began accumulating wealth, and then you've entered the preservation phase and you've preserved that wealth and grown it even more. Once you hit the redistribution phase, you will actually be flipping that graph. So you'll start coming down slightly on your net worth. And this is because you will start systematically and, with thought, withdrawing some of your earnings. So withdrawing some of your wealth as a way to sustain and provide you a lifestyle post-retirement. So you're no longer relying on the income of your job, hence retirement. You may still have a few passive income sources and side businesses that will bring you an income, but typically you will be either relying on a pension or hopefully, if you're smart, not relying on a pension and instead relying on the own wealth that you've built up. It's really, really important in this stage of life and in this stage of your investment journey to lower your risk as much as possible. As I said before, you do not want to be taking a lot of risk at this stage because, like I said, let's say you are in retirement and you're withdrawing 4% a year of your portfolio to live on. If you then risk that portfolio and put it all into a really dodgy coin or maybe a really high growth stock that, you've heard your neighbour that's 30 years old tell you about, and that goes wrong, you might be then forced to actually go back into employment, which would be really, really sad. So at this stage, you definitely look to probably increase your bonds as an asset class, maybe keep some in index funds, and maybe you have some property at this stage that you rent out. I don't know. But it's about lowering that risk so you can really, really rely on you having an income during retirement. So those in a nutshell are the three main stages, however you want to say it, of an investment journey from start to finish. So from when you enter working life to all the way up until you retire. And it's really important to know about those things. You could also break this down further. So you could have, for example, the earn phase where you're earning money, you're building up your income, you're growing your portfolio and you're beginning to invest that. That could then move on to the saving phase where you're learning about personal finance, you're learning about budgeting, you're very, very much trying to get your incomings to be larger than your outgoings, and you're really learning about investing and personal finance. After that, you could enter a grow stage. So this is when you really understand your personal investment strategy and you're really looking to grow your net worth. You know what you're investing in, you know your plan, you know when you're exiting and entering the markets, you know your stuff, and you're just sticking to your plan and building your wealth during this growth stage. And then you go into the preservation phase, which is what we discussed, the preservation and the redistribution stage. This is when you look to lower your risk. You take a look at your asset classes and you make sure that they are going to be able to withstand any market volatility and provide you with your income that you need during retirement. I really hope that's helped anyone out there that is a beginner investor or just doesn't really know what their investment journey looks like in the future. Of course, this is open to interpretation, but this is just a general idea. So I really hope it helps. Please give this video a like, subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.